principal, teachers, students, specially invited guests, a pleasant good morning. I am Melissa Pear. I am the Senior Trade and Policy Specialist, and it gives me great pleasure to address you here today at the Youth Forum segment of our annual HSSE conference. This year marks the 25th year of the HSSE conference and exhibition, and we believe that it remains an effective vehicle for the sharing of information, the encouragement of HSE best practice, and the elevation of national HSSE awareness and standards. AmCham Trinidad and Tobago decided to incorporate a youth forum element of this conference as we recognize that true sustainable development can only become a reality if young persons are assured the opportunity of learning and developing are meaningfully engaged in the dialogue relating to solutions of national issues. Each year, we extend invitations to 120 students in Forms 4 and Form 6 to actively participate in this forum. Today, we partnered with Restore a Sense of I Can to be able to reach a wider audience. Before I move to our speaker, I would like to thank actually our sponsors for today, Point Lisa's Nitrogen Limited. This session is a very important topic because it deals with digital footprint, social media etiquette, cybersecurity, digital entrepreneurship, which are very important topics made more critical with the advent of COVID-19. Let me introduce you to our speaker. Our speaker is Daren Dhoray. He is a digital anthropologist who has been studying, researching, and presenting on topics related to internet addiction, cyberbullying, and social media etiquette. Daren holds the post of webmaster at UE St. Augustine campus. Daren has presented voluntarily to over 20,000 students, parents, and teachers collectively from Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Brazil, Germany, Italy, Portugal, and Spain. Daren, let me hand over to you. Let me ask that as Daren presents that we please keep our cameras as well as we keep our mics muted as we allow Daren to present so that we would not get the feedback. All right, Daren, over to you.
Thank you very much, Melissa, and good day to everyone on the call. I see we have students, jumping in on the call, so we'll just hang on for a couple seconds again while I share my screen and get things rolling. So let me just get to my screen here. So we should be seeing my first slide. Melissa, just give me a nod if we're good to go.
Yes, we are.
Perfect. All right. So today is one of two sessions that I am very privileged to have with the audience on cyber safety. My first is for the younger group, and we've entitled it A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Internet. Now, I know that we are in the lunchtime mode, so I do hope that your hunger for this session is greater than your hunger for nutrition. And without further ado, let us begin. I would like to start with a little bit of presentation etiquette. As Melissa did indicate, we will probably try to get through the presentation in a short time as possible and hopefully have some time at the end for some question and answers. So I'm asking you to mute your mics and turn your video off. And again, bearing in mind that, we are in lunchtime. If you are going to have your lunch now, please turn off your mics and cams so we don't hear you through or see what lovely food that you're about to eat. So without further delay, let us dive right in. Now, some of you in the audience here might have learned to swim at some point in time. And I would like to say that, you probably didn't learn right in the deep end to begin with. You probably started off in the shallow and be able to, gradually get your way into the deep. And even when, you're probably a lot smaller and your parents may have taken you to a pool or so, you probably look like this, right? And the idea of it really is to show you that, parents always try to protect their kids, they would try to sometimes be a little overprotective. And they're just doing what they believe in their mind is the best thing to keep you safe in general. We know that this is probably something that some of us might have to do eventually. And sometimes these things, even though it's meant to protect you, it might hurt physically or sometimes emotionally. But again, remember, parents would make these kind of decisions in your best interest. Generally they know the things that you should and should not do, or I should say, not necessarily ready to do. Like this little guy here, he probably should not be behind a wheel for obvious reasons, and it's in the same way parents sometimes try to ensure that their kids are safe in the real world, just as they are also safe in the virtual world. And that's, where our presentation is heading towards today. So I think in the audience today, if I'm correct with the age group, we probably have some teenagers, but I want to say that we definitely have screen agers, yeah? And I'm sure just by looking at this diagram, this image here, you know exactly what I mean, right? And I'm sure even this picture is probably a little bit more familiar. This is more than likely, a birthday party session or some sort of event, and everyone's face is in the screen. Chances are all of these girls are probably speaking to each other at that same time. I say, I think that the visual effects though of kids facing the screen, and don't get angry with me here, it's probably a little bit more like this, because sometimes you end up being a little zombie when you're consumed in that space, and ended up doing too many things to not distract you from the norm, right? And it's all well and good. I know that this is quite difficult to deal with because it's actually a real thing called internet addiction. And some of us might probably have internet addiction or suffer with internet addiction disorder, infobesity, right? Too much of anything isn't good, right? And we know that goes across the board, and it also applies to the internet. So internet addiction disorder is a real thing in the sense that there are actual physical centers, places that you can go, you can check yourself into to say, hey, listen, I have a problem with, disconnecting and getting away from the internet, and I need your help. Just in the same way, there are narcotic intervention centers, for folks who have, issues with taking drugs and so on. It's quite similar. And I want to put that in perspective because that's how bad it is. These apps are actually made for us to, use and consume on a very regular basis, and it actually gets us addicted. So there are different types of addictions, right? And as I said, too much of one thing is not good, right? The same way in which, too much of this, we all know, is not good for you, right? And I'm also sure that, too much of this as well is also not good for you. I'm sure everyone in the audience today, however, would agree when I say that too much of this is definitely not good for you, right? And we may have some folks disagreeing if I say that too much of this is not good for you, right? But at the end of the day, what we're trying to say is that, sometimes we need to detox a little bit because, getting too involved in the device and the games and the apps, social media apps that come with it, can take away from learning activities and even regular activities that you might do with your family. So I want to share with you some signs and symptoms of internet addiction, and you can determine for yourself whether or not you might have some of these symptoms, or if you know someone close by or in your family who might. Right. So first of all, we have whether or not being online all the time or being on that device interferes with your work or studies. Right. I think that's quite important, particularly now where the same device that you're probably using to learn is also that same device that you're probably using to play. So that's going to be quite difficult for you to manage, right? Whether or not it interferes with your work or studies. What about this? You tend to neglect your friends and family while, you're on that device. Mom is probably calling you to get something done and you're not hearing anything, but you're just so fixated on that device. And what about you're happy when you're online or connected or using the app, and you just, kind of bored and depressed and sad, when you don't have the device. That's another telltale sign. And I hope none of us here have to lie about the time that you spend online, right? It's like I'm cutting off at 10 o'clock, and, all 2 o'clock in the morning you're still on the internet, right? There are a few other things as well, such as disrupting your sleep. And I think this is very important. If we have any teachers in the conversation this morning, you might probably realize some of your students, when they log onto classroom in the morning, they don't look 100% alert. And chances are, they may have just recently come offline, because they were connected for an extended period into the wee hours of the morning, may have just, been able to get a couple hours sleep, and then they jump into class. So this really affects, the way in which you can dedicate and give, full attention to a new day of learning if you're always on the internet. And then we also have, serious health repercussions where you can end up with headaches and eye pains and back pain, and of course weight gain, because we become very lethargic and not active. So all of those are signs and symptoms of internet addiction. And to be honest with you, I really hope that none of you all looking in on experience any of these. And if you do, it's something for you to bear in mind in terms of going forward. Now, I did a little bit of math, right? And I want to show you how you can actually lose a whole month in a fortnight. And bear with me here. So time spent online, right? Let's just say, assume, spend 2 hours a day, on the internet, or maybe just playing Fortnite, for example. That's just about 28 hours in a fortnight, or 14 days, which is almost equivalent to 1 day. That gives us about 2 days every month, nearly 24 days each year, approximately a whole month, let's minus the weekend. So you see, just by playing Fortnite for 2 hours a day, which might seem a little bit, because I know many of you here might probably be playing these games for far much more than 2 hours a day, that we can actually lose a whole month of our entire year by just sitting behind the screen and doing, what some people like to say, mindless activities, right? And again, it's just to bring these things to the fore, where, sometimes when your parents say, hey, get off your phone and go do something, they may have a point. They may be, hinting towards something, all right? So let's try and not be this person, right? Let us have a grip on what we can and cannot do, what can control us, and what we can control, right? So that's it in a nutshell on internet addiction. And I hope it would have brought some pointers to your field of vision here. Now, as we're connecting on the internet, and we mentioned that sometimes you're online and the wee hours of the morning. What we have seen, and by we, cyber safety, along with the cybercrime unit of Trinidad and Tobago and other bodies, is that often in the wee hours of the morning is when both young people and old people interact with people that they have relations with. So your online relationships generally tend to play off in the wee hours of the morning. And this is where you find meeting friends online and dating friends online, and then sometimes breaking up with them online, and you never actually even meet them face to face. And I think this is even more pertinent now with COVID, where we're unable to actually go and physically meet someone. So we have to make the online space our new social gathering area. And this is where we interact, we do internet challenges, we have communications, we upload videos, we spend an enormous amount of time on the internet. But what we also do there as well is that we increase our social, etiquette and profiles online. So the more time you spend online, the more we interact, we may become close to someone. And also build these type of relationships. I know that some of you are in those years where you're meeting individuals and you're actually having, feelings for someone, and it's playing off on the internet. Now, what we need to be aware of, and again, this is from fact, this is not just, thinking about what could happen. What we need to be aware of is when someone requests of you to share inappropriate pictures, right? Because, and I understand how it works, you're unable to really express yourself online in the same way in which you can express yourself or express your feelings with someone face to face. And therefore, sometimes we revert to sharing of inappropriate pictures. What often happens, let's just say we end up breaking up with that individual. That person can actually then extort you to send more pictures with the threat of publishing some of those pictures or sharing outside a group. Now, all of those things are actually admissible by law. You can actually be charged for doing those things. But what happens there is actually it starts to scar your digital footprint. And this is something that we're going to discuss in a few slides lower down, what your digital footprint is and why you should and should not do certain things. And it really brings us to our topic of, online etiquette. And I'd like to start off that particular topic with, restating the golden rules. Some of you are probably quite well aware of what it is, in the sense that it's do unto others as you would have them, do unto you. So the same way in which, you would not speak to someone, in person or in face-to-face, then you don't, want to speak to that person online. I think we tend to hide behind the screen sometimes, thinking that, we can say what we want because we're actually not that close to the person. But that generally tends to, hurt them a bit more. And sometimes we end up saying things that are really out of our character. It's not something that you might generally say. So you definitely want to bear in mind the golden rule. And as we mentioned before, there are definitely some things that you want to keep private. If it is that, you don't want your grandparents or your parents to see it, then don't post it up online, because there are ways in which that information is going to be shared. There is no private WhatsApp group. Let's just get that out of the way one time. You might be in a group with 3 or 4 people, but somehow or the other, if the content is juicy enough, it's going to find its way outside that group. So keep that information private, particularly when you're creating your social media profiles. So some of them may ask for additional information, which may not be mandatory information, and you want to ensure that you understand that. So it's not mandatory for you to put your home address in any social media platform. All they really need is probably an email address, and in some instances, a phone number. Anything else is just additional information that they're requesting of you to get more information about you, but you don't need it to actually use the social media platform. So the less information you can share about about yourself online, the better it would be for everyone. Okay. And last but not least, you really don't want to be posting stuff when you are emotionally charged, right, or angry, because you tend to, again, not think appropriately about what it is that you are going to post, and you often tend to regret it in the end. And we all know what goes up on the internet stays up on the internet, right? Whether you delete it or not, someone can actually screenshot it and then share it, and that becomes viral as well. And you no longer have control over the original content. So think before you post. Definitely take a little breather. If you're angry, if someone got you angry, don't jump straight to social media, or don't jump straight into an email to send something to someone, because it can, and it probably will be used against you going forward. And again, these are all things that form part of your digital footprint. And that digital footprint is literally everything that you leave of yourself on the internet. Every post, every share, the nicknames that you use for yourself in those gaming platforms, Twitches that you upload, WhatsApp messages, a whole host of different things. Even if you comment on a product on Amazon, right? You make a comment there. That's also part of your digital footprint. Now, why is this important, and why have I mentioned this term so many times this morning already? You see, a digital footprint is going to be, if it's not already, your living resume. And it's what individuals such as employers or even university admission officers would use to search to get more information about you. So what happens is individuals apply to go to a job, or they apply to go to university. Some of them may be on a scholarship or applying for a scholarship. And you would have submitted your information, which would have shown that you are, absolutely brilliant. You got all great, high grades in your profile. And what they're looking for is something that distinguishes you from the other person who also has very, very high academic profiles. So the easiest thing for some of these employers and these admission officers in universities to do is to Google your name. So I'm wondering whether or not any of you actually ever Googled your name before. And if you haven't, you might probably want to do so now. And what comes up is your digital footprint. Now, your digital footprint is something that, you can have a lot of control over. So it's always good to be aware as to what is said about you on the internet and what you upload on the internet, because it forms part of your digital footprint. So bear in mind that, all the interactions that you have on the internet, form part of your digital footprint at some point, and it may come to haunt you or benefit you, because that's what we're having this conversation for today. We want to ensure that it benefits you later on. The only way in which it will probably haunt you is, of course, if we have really, really bad things about ourselves. And those bad things really come about as of, cyberbullying activities. And I have a single slide here to speak on this topic today. And this particular one compares, traditional bullying, which generally includes a face-to-face interaction with, you and another person. And then it compares to cyberbullying. And in my opinion, cyberbullying is, 100 times or 1,000 times worse than regular bullying, because for the sole reason that, you really cannot run away or hide from a cyberbully, or you cannot get away as easily from a cyberbullying act as you can from a regular bullying act. Because if it's a post, if it's a meme, if it's something bad that was sent online, an inappropriate image that was shared, a doctored image, for example, that was shared, you're going to end up in a situation where you open up your laptop, you open up your phone, you open up anything, any digital device, and you're on that social media platform or anything connected to the internet, and this image could come back to haunt you, or that text or phrase could come back to haunt you. So it's really important, especially for those who not are the victims, but for the perpetrators. If you believe that, you can just go online and say something bad about someone, think about the consequences. The consequences, I think, are far-reaching. We've had a lot of unfortunate incidents where victims of cyberbullying activities felt that there was no way out, and felt that, their only way to deal with the situation is by self-harm, or even, taking their own lives. And we've had similar situations right here in Trinidad and Tobago that have resulted in, those ultimate situations because of cyberbullying. So it's something that, you definitely don't want to be involved in. Stop, block, and tell is definitely, the 3 words that you can remember as it pertains to cyberbullying. If it happens to you, you want to stop interacting or engaging with the person, you can block them, block the person, block the social media account, and you can tell or report to either the social media platform or an adult or teacher or parent, right? If it is something that's actually threatening, then definitely, you would want to report to an adult who can then take it to, the authorities. So that covers that topic of, digital footprint and cyberbullying. I want to speak to you, the last bit of information here on what we have been experiencing since March last year, which is, online learning, or this new way of learning. Many of you connected here are probably connected, on the same platform that you use to, on a daily basis, to do your teaching and learning. And sometimes, you might probably end up in a situation where, you become swamped and overwhelmed with all of this technology that's being thrown your way. And you really want to be able to adapt. What I found that a lot of individuals are lacking in, and it's no fault of yours, is that of typing. And I always tend to, refer to this particular website, Typing Academy. I actually learned to type on this site. And it's very, very good. It's free. And it has a lot of quick tutorials that will help you to figure out how to use those fingers faster on the keyboard, because I know that definitely is something that, can deter you when you have an exam to write online, for example, or even when you're writing out your projects. You don't want to sit behind the computer, beleaguering behind Microsoft Word or Google Docs and typing as, for an extended period. You would really want to be able to type. And of course, there is the annotation feature. But you do have to go back and do some, correcting if you were to use that particular facility. But Typing.Academy, I think it's something that, everyone sitting in on here could use. Even the adults who might be sitting on the call and, you think that you can type really well, this also helps you to sharpen up your speed and your skills. So like I said, we want to, put the questions in the chat, and hopefully we'll have, a few minutes coming on to the end to deal with it. Right, so I'm also going to speak to you about, on the topic of, dealing with this online learning and online classing, is how to email a teacher. Because, interestingly enough, even when students get to university level, this is something that they haven't mastered yet. And if you would have listened on the introduction, I'm the webmaster Dewey, and I would read emails from university level students, and still, they do have a lot to learn. So you can take a screenshot of or a picture of this particular image because there is a lot of information here. But to the extreme right, I'm just going to try and run through it quite quickly. You want to ensure that you put a really appropriate subject, something that sort of explains that message that you want to send. You want to start with some manners. And you also want to end with some manners as well. Try and be as succinct as possible in your email and include as much details in terms of date and time and so on. And so that whoever is reading that email would sort of get as much information or all the information that you wanted them to receive. So I have two examples of what's a bad email, which is of course this one. The subject here is just assignment. And then the email just starts, I can't find the assignment you give in class. There is no hi miss or thank you on your name. Yes, there is that, abbreviation of thank you, but we should try and avoid that, when we're sending formal emails. So your email should actually be more like this, where it might seem a little bit longer, but once you get that handle of typing, you're going to realize how easy it is for you to figure it out. Because remember, that teacher will probably be responsible for multiple classes, and if it's something that's urgent, the quicker you can get that attention to whoever's reading it, the better. So, that's just something I thought that, I should share because I've heard complaints from many teachers as well in terms of, this is the type of messaging that we get from our students. So I'm hoping that, you will be able to take this with you going forward. Now, the last slide that I want to speak to you on today, it's going to seem to be quite busy. And you can actually visit my website, cybersafety.com/10top online safety tips to get a full version of what you're seeing on the right-hand side there. It's actually printable and so on if you wish. So when we speak about online safety and we're summarizing everything that we spoke about today, I like to categorize it into three sections, right? Social safety, which is something that we sort of spoke about before with, your digital footprint and being safe online. And then we have hardware safety, which I think we often tend to forget. And then we, of course, have information safety, which we sometimes remember. And I just want to touch on two things, mainly because we are putting a lot of information onto our laptops or desktops, right? Because we're putting our work, our schoolwork information, as well as our personal information, such as pictures and videos and stuff that we might create and take out. Suppose that laptop would have crashed tomorrow morning, or no, let's knock on wood. What would be the case? Would you be able to function? And it's going to be probably a disaster. You're probably going to be panicking, especially if you're not familiar with using the cloud and backing things up. And in the session this afternoon, we're actually going to speak a little bit more in detail, on backups and so on. But again, all of that information is actually on cybersafety.com. So two things that I want to leave with you, three things actually, before we close off and open up the floor to some questions. You want to ensure that you have backup of your work, both personal and your school-related work, right? I always recommend that you have three backups. One backup originally would be what you're working on a computer. Another one would be one that would be on a USB key or an external hard drive. And the third backup would be something that's in the cloud. And when we say the cloud, that is something like Google Drive or OneDrive or any of those online storage facilities. You see, that way, if in case your laptop crashes, you can always jump straight to that particular cloud on any computer and download your files and continue working from there. The next thing that you want to be aware of is protecting the laptop from power surges, because we do have some power fluctuations and power issues in Trinidad and Tobago. That's one thing. And then two, if you have to buy another charging adapter, whether it is for your phone or your laptop or your tablet, you really want to stay away from generic adapters because sometimes they don't give you adequate power. So you want to protect that hardware. You want to have hardware safety at bay. You want to ensure that you're always protected. And let's not have the situation where we have one power outlet and an extender or one of those plugs that you can fit 10 other plugs in on it. So in the one corner of the house where the Wi-Fi is best, everyone sort of congregates in that area and we plug in everything into that outlet. yeah, that's a recipe for disaster. So try not to overload any sort of circuits, right? And then of the last thing that I wanted to touch on from an information security perspective is please ensure that you have a really good antivirus and anti-malware software. I used to say the free ones were good, but now I would strongly recommend that you encourage your parents to subscribe to some sort of paid for solution. And these are not expensive, but the paid for solutions really do offer you that next level of protection. It would prevent you from a whole host of things, such as your email accounts being hacked, your social media accounts being hacked, other things, going wrong. So definitely social safety, hardware safety, and information safety. In a nutshell, that's everything that we can look at to protect ourselves on the internet and to be safe online. So with that, I want to say thank you. We would have spoken about quite a lot of things, and I do have a tendency of speaking quite fast. So if it is that we have some time to answer some questions, I might ask one of the moderators to shoot those questions over to me, or I'll look into the chat. Feel free to follow up with our website. We're on all the different social media platforms. Well, we're on most of them. We're just getting into TikTok as well. So follow us there. Feel free to send us any questions. And if there's any slide that you want me to go back to before we close, feel free to let me know there as well. So I'm gonna leave this up for a while, and I'm gonna open up the chat to see if we have any questions. If we have any questions. Yes, I've seen Malwarebytes. It's good. NordVPN, that's also good. Nice. There are lots of stuff in the chat. I'm not too sure if any of the administrators noticed any questions.
I haven't seen any questions just yet. Okay. So please post your questions if you have any questions for Daren.
Right. I'm not sure if they can put their mics on. Yeah.
Yeah, you can put on your mics and ask your questions.
Excuse me, is it possible for someone to remotely access your personal information on a device? Like if you have not just any special circumstances, but firewalls are good, we have antiviruses installed. Basically, you took every precaution to prevent malware. Would it still have a way for a person with a normal device to hack your files?
That's a really good question. And to start off that conversation there is no silver bullet, right? So or there is no ultimate security package, right? Nothing is going to absolutely prevent you. So to answer your question, unfortunately, yes, there is still ways in which certain things can happen. More than likely, though, it might be as a result of a weak password that you might use, because you could still have the best firewall, the best antivirus and anti-malware software. But if your passwords to access your information is weak, then it's really easy for someone to gain access. And your email is generally the first port of call, which can be used to grant access to every other thing, because your email is used to verify when you open an account on social media or when you open up an account on email. So if a hacker figures out your password, then they can also, by extension, gain access to many other of your other accounts. So definitely it's something that you want to pay attention to. There has been a proliferation of emails recently with folks seemingly asking you for help, and it might be from someone that but of course you never had that kind of interaction with the person before, and they never asked you for help. That's a clear-cut case of that particular account being hacked. There's also another one where someone might send you a WhatsApp message saying, hey, I just sent a 6-digit code to you in error. Can you send it back to me? That's a classic WhatsApp hack that is actually taking advantage of a flaw in WhatsApp to take over your account. So one of the things that I would recommend, wherever possible, whether it is WhatsApp, email, social media, you should enable the feature called two-factor authentication. That's where after you enter your username and password, you will also be prompted to enter a code from either an app on your phone, or they'll send you a message. And that's how you would grant access into the system. that, as of right now, seems to be the most secure way of protecting all of your online platforms. So definitely two-factor authentication is something that you would want to employ along with all of the other things that you mentioned. Right.
I have another question.
Sure.
Yeah. Is it true that all of your online files are linked in one way? Well, in some ways. So if someone gains access to one part, then they will gain access to basically almost all of your files on that device. Even if it's not directly related, the fact that it's on one device
Right.
and under your one account.
So what happens there is we tend to use that feature of automatic sign-in, right? So let's just say we have Google Drive and we have OneDrive and we have email and we have all the other things. And we always, of course, we don't want to be entering our password every time. So we say, well, when you enter it once, just remember me. So if the device is compromised, then yes, access to all the other things are compromised. Because if someone has access to the device and they open up Chrome, for example, would it not automatically log you into the email, right? So that's definitely a use case scenario where, you know, if someone gets your device, then, you know, you have that particular situation to deal with. Now, different operating systems, so whether it is an Apple device, Macintosh, or if it is a Windows device, you know, you can actually deal with that in a particular way. So for example, all of Apple devices, you can actually log onto a site and report that it was stolen, which is managed by Apple, and you could remotely wipe the machine, right? So once it actually connects to the internet, you know, everything would, you know, be erased. That comes by default with Apple. With Windows, you have to actually purchase that software, and the software is called LoJack. It's the same thing that Car Search uses here. That same type of technology, and also the same company, they've extended it to laptops as well. So you can actually purchase that on an annual subscription. So if it is that you have really, really sensitive information on your laptop, or you utilize your laptop, you know, for work, and you have certain types of documents on it that you really wouldn't want out in the public, that may be a reason to invest in something like that. So that would help you in the event that the laptop itself or the device itself is always, if the device itself is stolen. Someone asked the question about age for Instagram. I think that age for Instagram is 13 years. That's what the recommended age by the social media platform says for you to create an account, 13 years. I think the only ones that are 16 years would be WhatsApp, WeChat. I can't remember what the other one is, but most of the popular ones would be, yes, 13 years. Is Malwarebytes? Yes, Malwarebytes is good. There is a free version and there is a paid for version. The difference between the free and the paid for version of Malwarebytes updates faster. So if a new malware is discovered, or any new type of software related to that is discovered, the free version does not update your software as fast as the paid for version would. So you definitely might still be vulnerable up until the point in which it's updated. And that's generally the case with most of the free and paid for versions.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes?
I have two questions. If you have went through a cyber crimes, sorry. If you had, how would you deal with an identity theft scam?
Okay, right. So there are a few ways in which you can actually get that sorted out. The first way to actually address it is to deal with the actual social media platform. So most of the social media platforms have methods of reporting whether or not, one, you notice a fake profile, or a profile is pretending to be you or someone that you know, which is, you know, untrue. So that's definitely the first course of action. Now, I'm actually part of the Facebook community guidelines group for the Caribbean. And this question has actually been raised by myself and some other folks in the group, because a lot of people find that, you know, they don't get any sort of response when they report a fake profile. So what the folks from Facebook told me is that they have so many reports of this on a daily basis that they may not, it's not that they are ignoring it, it's just that it takes time for them to get to the ones that, based on their algorithm, is high priority. So I asked him, so what makes a report high priority? And the immediate response was, the more people respond that the profile is fake, the faster they will act on it. So that's something that you need to bear in mind. If it is that someone has a fake profile and you alone reported it, it's not going to get the attention as if you get, a majority of your friends and other people to actually report it as well. So that's definitely going to help. So that's your first thing. Secondly, you need to let individuals know. For example, you can actually send out an email or send out a message to all of your friends indicating, hey, look, this is a fake profile. This is not me. Do not accept any requests that comes from it, or do not send any messages, right? And they themselves can actually go into it and block and remove, and of course report, because that's what we want to try to do, right? Get folks to report it. And don't antagonize, because that could only take you down further into that rabbit hole of getting more information. Make sure your accounts have the proper privacy settings. Sometimes, we may invite people or we may add friends to our network, not really knowing who they are, and then we forget that we add them, and then we start putting more private and personal information on our accounts. So you may, ever so often want to do a little flush of, your friends listing and say, well, I really don't know who this person is. I don't know why I add them, and just move them off, right? So those are a few things that you can actually do. If the fake profile is relaying information that's threatening, or it's defamatory, or it's causing harm for you or a business or a company or your parents, then you have proper cause via screenshots and information that you can have recorded to take it to the police service, and they can then determine whether or not that's a matter that they can address at that level, right? And I have seen of particular situations that have been addressed in that way. So, fear not. If it reaches that point, of actual harm, then, you always have that option to do. Hope that answers the question.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm not sure if you covered this already, but if we are trying to see if an account is like real or fake, like how do you know if it's real?
Right. And sometimes these hackers or these individuals can, be so sophisticated, right? So more than likely, the first thing they'll probably try to do is create a fake account of a real one, okay? So my first thing is, if I receive an email or a friend request from someone that I already probably have an email or add them as a friend from this individual, then that raises a little bit of questions in my mind. So I might just send them a message. So if you have, a contact for them outside that platform, so let's just say they send you a friend request on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it might be, and you have their phone number, you could just send them a quick WhatsApp or a quick message saying, hey, did you just send me a request? Because I know we are already connected. And if they say no, of course, that's a telltale sign that's a fake account. You can look at as to when the account was created and the kind of activity on the account. So if it's very, very new and there is like no posts on it, and the picture doesn't even look like the person, or it's a generic picture, that's also a telltale sign that it's probably a fake account. You also want to pay attention to how the person speaks, because you would of course know how someone would probably chat with you, and definitely if it doesn't sound like them, it's probably not them. Lastly, if it's an absolute stranger trying to connect with you, if you believe that that's not the case, and you're just not feeling sure about making that connection, then there's absolutely no pressure on you to connect to that person at all. And as the saying goes, if it sounds too good to be true, chances are it is too good to be true. So you really want to stay away from that. So I mean, there are a few things that you can look at. On cyber safety, we do have an article on identifying fake profiles, so you could probably have a look at it there. We would have explained that and a couple more pointers, which it just not comes to me right now, but you can definitely look at the website and see. what can probably help.
Hi, Daren. Guys, so we can accept one last question. If you have other questions, Daren is going to be back at 2 o'clock today. So feel free to log into that session at 2. So one final question. Going once, going twice. Okay, so Daren, I want to thank you very much for this. This was a fantastic session. I felt it was very interactive. I want to thank each and every one of you for attending today's session. I saw we got up as high as 100. We're down to 96, but I was really appreciative of you guys logging in and participating. So I look forward to seeing you in other sessions. I will need to thank our sponsor, Point Lisa's Nitrogen Limited, and look out for the next sessions. Remember, you need to attend 3 sessions to be able to obtain a certificate. So I look forward to seeing you guys later on. Thanks again, Daren.
All right, take care. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.